Welcome to IDERA Virtual Education. In this video, we're going to talk about the column search feature within SQL Compliance Manager. Column search is really about identifying where potentially sensitive data is within your databases, and then using the tool to automatically assign auditing towards those columns and or exporting the data out to be shared with other users. When you right-click on a database, at the bottom, you'll see sensitive column search. And the first thing that you'll want to do is configure the search parameters that you're after. This is a healthcare database, so if you notice, a lot of the definitions that are checked here are related to personal identifying information, both as at the individual level as well as a health-related level. Now, what we're doing is looking at the column definitions within the database schema itself. You can always edit. So for example, if I have treatment as my wildcard term that I'm looking for, I can say edit string. I can put a semicolon in, percent term percent. So there may be more than one way of identifying a specific treatment. It could be treatment ID, it could be treatment procedure. So you could put procedure in there along with treatment. It would identify that as well. Now, once we hit search, perform search, it's going to go through this database, look at each individual table, identify if any columns were flagged. So across the 7 tables that were identified, or the 5 tables that were identified in this particular example, there were 15 columns. There were 7 columns within one individual database, and you'll see what that looks like below. Notice that it will also give you the size and the row count. So the lab core population table has the most rows versus this patient age has 0 rows, right? So there's some different ways that this could give you some idea of how pervasive the data is within these particular columns identified. Now, once we've identified them, you have 2 different options. Generally speaking, I always export them, right? So I will always drop this out to a CSV file out to the desktop. So we're going to have a record of all the columns that were identified. And then additionally, you have the option to go ahead and automatically add these sensitive columns to your database to be audited. I've already done that. When you initialize this for the very first time, if you don't already have columns set up for sensitive columns, they will all be on the left-hand side, but you just check the ones you want, hit add, and they will be automatically added. What that actually means and what that looks like is if I look at this database now, go to its properties, and look at the tab here called sensitive columns, those columns have all been identified for me within the database. I'll also mention quickly that what I've chosen to do with these sensitive columns is identify any select activity that's happening. I could extend that out to all activity or just DMO and select, but in my specific use case, we're only concerned about select events. Now, what about the export? So as I mentioned earlier, I always export the data out. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One of the main reasons, though, is so that I can share this with other individuals and just make sure that we're on the same page. So if you look at this from a notepad perspective, it's a simple comma delineated CSV file. And you'll notice the structure of this is really relatively simple, right? So you have the database name, the schema table, the columns match, the column types, etc. The only thing that we need really is the database name, the table, and then the columns matched. Nevertheless, the idea is that you can come in here and edit, make modifications to this CSV file, and then once you've kind of internally discussed and figured out this is exactly what we're looking for, you can then import that at a later date into Compliance Manager for auditing. So if you right click on the instance, you can say import sensitive columns, browse out to the CSV, and it will populate that data. So these are the different tables within the healthcare data warehouse database down to the column level that need to be audited. So it's a really quick and easy way for you to get up and running quickly with auditing sensitive columns. Thank you for your time.